1094 Marion. Mr. Rowe.
Yes.
All right, you have a kind of thing going on.
Very similar.
Yeah, Ms. Martin, tell me a little bit about this.
July 19th, 2018, we issued a summary abatement order to the occupant at 1094 Marion Street and Kenneth Rowe, 1094 Marion Street, St. Paul, 55117, specifically addressing removing the temporary awning structure from the rear yard against the back of the house. Compliance date was for August 20th. Sounds like there's been some confusion as far as what is considered a temporary structure, what is not. We've had many phone calls back and forth, and as you know, Steve Ubel is the building official. This falls under his direction. I noticed that Mr. Rowe had sent in a copy of an approved parking plan, which was approved, but it also says site plan for temporary canopy. So again, it is temporary. So for the record, Mr. Ubel did state that he spoke with Kenny last week, discussed the temporary structure. The photos that he viewed identified a temporary structure at 1094 Marion Street that does not have the required wind load protection. He could not see if the membrane is approved material with the NFPA labeling. The structure is not allowed to remain as it is unless he can provide documentation that supports the building code requirements approved by the building official.
Tell me a little bit about the site plan and when that was reviewed.
It looks like July 30th, 2018, a parking plan approved with a temporary 10 by 20 canopy.
Okay, so, when this came in as an appeal, and I read your appeal, I did send a note to staff saying a number of DSI people have interacted with you, and I wanted homework to be done on what the bottom line is before walking in today.
Sure.
And so, Ms. Martin did summarize this nicely, and let me just tell you what the email, and this is attached to the record, and we can get this for you. So from the building official, Ms. Martin, this is addressed to Ms. Martin, saying, "Good morning, Lisa. I spoke with the gentleman named Kenny last week to discuss the temporary structure at 1094 Marion. This section of the building code stated below explains to us that even though a permit may not be required for specific work that is to be completed, the work must still be completed reflecting the provisions of the building code. I explained to him the example of installing handrails or guardrails on a deck that is less than 30 inches above grade and or has less than 4 risers in a stairway. A building permit is not required to install the handrails or guardrails in this particular scenario, but components must still be installed using the provisions of the code because it must be safe for the consumer." And then he quoted from the Minnesota Residential Code, "Exceptions from permit requirements of the code do not authorize work to be done in any manner in violation of the code or any other laws or ordinance in this jurisdiction. The photos I have seen identify a temporary structure at 1094 Marion that does not have the required wind load protection, and I cannot see if the membrane is approved material with NFPA labeling. The structure is not allowed to remain unless he can provide documentation that supports building code requirements." So we got a couple things going on. We got that it's a temporary structure. We got how long temporary structures can exist, regardless of NFPA
Right.
things. And so, taking all this into consideration, tell me what you're looking for today.
Well, and I agree, this is a temporary structure, and it was only to be used during the summer months. And so, as the site plan reflects, it was gonna be down November 1st. It's used to protect a motorcycle with a sidecar, okay? And so, it's less than 180 days, and that's it. So this is a temporary structure. It's only been up since the middle of, towards the end of June. There's a picture in there showing that it was actually at the state fairgrounds June 15th. So I've got the summary abatement 40 days after it was up. Well, Minnesota Building Code actually states that, that they're allowed, anything over 180 days has to have the wind load and all this other stuff. Anything less than that has to follow the International Fire Code. And the International Fire Code basically says anything 400 square feet or above needs permits and compliance. Anything less than that, they don't cover. And so this is 200 square feet. St. Paul Legislative Code also says canopies, and this is a canopy, not an awning, it's not attached to the house, are allowed up to 400 square feet. Anything over that needs a permit. So this is only 200 square feet. It is a temporary structure. It's going to be down by November 1st every year, but I am going to put it up every summer.
Does it have, what kind of fabric is it?
It's a vinyl. It's a vinyl canopy with a metal frame.
How is it affixed to the ground?
With ropes and ground anchors. Basically, ground anchors get screwed in about that far into the ground. Ropes attach the ground anchors to the metal framing. The way the building official is interpreting this, he's saying that any structure, any canopy type structure, has to abide by wind loads. Okay, and that's not true. If that was true, people could.
It's true in this town if he says it is, unfortunately.
Well, that's just it. Every
the
canopy
building.
that goes up for an art show or a craft show or anything would actually have to be approved for wind loads and stuff. And that's not true, because anything under 180 days is actually considered temporary, which is the whole plan on mine, is less than
Okay,
180
and
days.
if it is a canopy like for an art show,
Mm-hmm.
which is, I don't know what that looks like, but I have seen that those are structures,
Okay,
you know, and that they, I don't know, because I didn't buy it and read the label on it, but that, I'm gonna say, is probably different than what I'm looking at here, unless this is the kind of structure I
this
would see
is
in an art
exactly
show.
the same as what you
Okay,
would see in a craft show.
I don't know that.
Right.
I will say that if it's holiday lights, and I'm switching gears here, if it's holiday lights, it wouldn't be okay to hang the same string of holiday lights year after year after year outside. Because they're temporary electrical.
Right, and they're gonna
they
deteriorate.
degrade.
Yes.
And so when I look at this, I would also be concerned about the degrading of the ropes and the fabric
Oh,
and the other things.
I agree.
Okay, and so in terms of its reuse, you know, being mindful of exactly that.
Oh, exactly. And as I said, this would be taken down, by November 1st every year. It's only there to protect the motorcycle. And I don't know what picture you have. We were out of town that weekend, and my wife parked a Jeep up behind the motorcycle so nobody would steal it. So.
I have all kinds of pictures of it. So I have.
Well, I provided you- I
have
provided a
what
bunch
the
of
inspector
pictures.
provided.
Right.
I have a lot.
Right. But when I spoke with the inspector, I explained to him this was a temporary structure. It's going to be taken down, and if something needs to be replaced, it's going to get replaced. If the tarp is damaged, the tarp gets replaced. It's not going to stay up there, forever. I agree with him 100% that this is a temporary structure, not to be used more than 180 days during any 12-month period. I don't have a problem with that. As I said, even with the site plan reflects that. That's what I put on the site plan.
Right, and that was temporary.
And
so-
the inspector said, well, how are we supposed to know how long it's been up? And I'm like, you could ask me, or monitor it like you would a parked car. Take a picture of it one day, and 180 days later, come back.
Does it have NFPA labeling?
I don't believe it does. Not that I've seen. I've never looked for it either, but I wouldn't imagine that it does.
And NFPA stands for?
National Fire Protection Agency.
Which would be the governing.
Correct. But in this case, because it's so small, it wouldn't go under the international fire code. If it was 400 square feet or above, then it would. Am I correct?
The building official makes a determination what meets or does not meet the code, and it was quite clear in his email that the building official required documentation that it meets those requirements.
So,
But what I'm saying is that the written code in the Minnesota
building
Building
code
Code,
would- the building code would take
International Fire
precedence, sir.
Code, the St. Paul Legislative Code
okay, and
don't
out of
require
all of
that.
that,
The
the
building
building
code
code governs.
governs, yes.
So,
Sure.
if the building, and the building official is the only one who can make a determination on that. I can't reinterpret the building code if he has given a particular interpretation. I can do legislative code and I can do fire code.
Right,
But
right.
if it's building code, that takes precedence over fire code, it takes precedent over legislative code, over any other code that applies.
Right.
And his interpretation is that he wants to see that NFPA labeling.
Okay.
I wonder if in the materials that you got in the package when you bought it, if there is NFPA labeling.
And there potentially could be, but like I said, I doubt it. This is a Harbor Freight Canopy, is $100. I doubt if it is.
Okay.
But as I said, even the Minnesota Building Code, those erected for a shorter period of time, 180 days, has to comply.
And I'm not reinterpreting the building code.
Right.
If he says this isn't okay without the NFPA labeling, I can't reinterpret that. What I can do is work with deadlines, and I can you'll have to clear that NFPA labeling thing with him. Okay? I can't tell you a different thing than what he's told you about the building code, and that's the way that world works. What I can say is I'm good with this through November 1st, but it should not be re-erected without proof that it does meet those requirements. And you can put something up in the future that does meet those requirements if it's a temporary structure, okay? So we'll get you through this season. If you have, and you can maybe check online with the manufacturer, and for the particular model unit you have, to see if there is that kind of labeling. That's often what people end up doing, is they get the, like, what is the model number on what I'm looking at from this particular manufacturer, and see if there is something. And that would be one way to get around it. But I think that if he's made that particular determination, I can't unmake it. I can give you more time, I'll get you through this season, but re-erecting it, you could get new orders on it, and you will need to prove up at that point in time.
And I'll accept that. The problem is, he's trying to enforce something that he has no authority to enforce. Because
Well, I would say that you need to take that then, two things you need to do. The appeal of a building code interpretation actually does go to the building official first. And so he's made a determination. The next step after you've done that is to take it to the state of Minnesota, not to me.
Okay.
And so that is the next stop if you believe that he's misinterpreted the building and the fire code. So we can give you information on that, but again, I can't reinterpret that. That
Right.
is something that he's said.
Well-
So,
like I said, the building code says that it has to follow fire code. Fire code says they have no
he
authority on
actually
something
is
that's small.
he is the guy. There is no other guy.
Right.
He is the guy. So do you want to pull up the building code appeal form out of the legislative hearing administrative directory? Do you have one with you? Of course you do. You're so together. All right, so we'll get you that form so you know who that appeal would go to. I got you through November 1st of this year. Re-erecting something next year has to be compliant.
Okay.
Okay.
And when I put it up next year, and I do have compliance for this, and they're going to issue me another summary abatement, and then I have to go through this whole thing again, but show you.
Don't put it up unless you've got
Right,
approval.
but then,
If I'm looking at the same thing next year, I'm gonna deny it, and they can take it down as fast as I can get it in front of city council.
No, what I'm saying is if I do put it up next year, it will have the certification. But when they issue me another summary abatement for it, because they can't see it,
So I would say you want to show that to the building official when you get it.
Okay.
And communicate that to him. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea to copy Ms. Martin, who writes those orders, so that she would know that it is cleared with the building official.
okay.
Okay, so did you find the form? Should
Going
be,
into the,
yes, BC appeal form, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, all right, we're good. It's past 11:30. I'm gonna go on to the 11:30 cases. Ms. Vang will get you the form that you need, so you know who at the state to contact.
Sure.
And I'm gonna get going here.
Thank you.
All right, so,
Item number 52, RLH SAO 18-53, appeal of Kenneth Rowe to a summary abatement order at 1094 Marion Street.
Council President Brenmoen, this is a summary abatement order, and it indicates on July 19th, the Department of Safety and Inspections asked Mr. Rowe to remove the temporary awning structure from the rear yard against the back of the house. On screen and in your packet of materials is a photograph of the temporary awning structure. There was a fair bit of discussion in the legislative hearing about which codes pertain to this structure, and the building official did weigh in with his opinion, and he made a determination that this is a temporary structure that cannot exist for more than 180 days. That email is attached to your record as well. I think that the substance of Mr. Rowe's comments will be that this structure had not been up for 180 days, which is the length of time that a temporary structure can be in existence before it's ordered to be removed. I see these cases a lot where staff don't know how long a temporary structure has been in place. Sometimes we find structures recently in Dayton's Bluff, ones that the owner says, hey, I've had that up for 10 years, and you're only talking to me now. In other cases, it's a vinyl thing that's been covering, a carport covering a car for 3 years. As a matter of practice, the department writes an order, and when I see the appeals, I say, you're right, we don't know how long it's been there, and try to get somebody 6 months worth of time if that makes sense in that case. And even sometimes when we know it's been in existence longer. In this case, I think we're all in agreement that it hasn't been there for a full 6 months, and that the extension through November would take it to a 6-month time period. And the question then for Mr. Rowe is, how does this get handled in the future? And I think he'll want to talk about that in greater detail with you.
I'm counting on my fingers here. So 180 days is equivalent to 6 months. We discovered this on the 19th of July, so wouldn't that be February?
Yeah, he was saying he's taking it down in November, so we just made it November.
Okay.
So
my math is correct.
He was going to take it down in November, so we said, okay, November. But yeah, if he wanted to have it up through February, the council certainly could.
Okay, just
Send it
checking
through
my
February.
math. Okay, are there any questions about this item by my colleagues? All right, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak to this item?
There is.
Okay.
I'm Kenneth Rowe.
And Kenneth, can I just get you to shift us a little bit this way, and the mics will pick you up better?
I'm Kenneth Rowe. I live at 1094 Marion Street in St. Paul. I would like the summary abatement vacated. Couple reasons. Number one, I was issued summary abatement under Chapter 45 of the City Legislative Code, which basically deals with refuse or buildings that are falling down and such. This is none of that. When I questioned this, the summary abatement with the Richard Krajewski, the person who wrote the summary abatement, he said, oh, that doesn't pertain. We're just concerned about the canopy in the backyard. So when I went to the hearing, I was basically blindsided by the hearing officer saying that
I've got an email from another building inspector, not the one who wrote the summary abatement, saying that this violates the Minnesota State Building Code and that it needs to meet wind load, snow load, and fire resistance ratings. And that should be a record of the legislative hearing, and it's actually in the email that the hearing officer mentioned. My point is, Minnesota Building Code is very clear that any temporary membrane structure of this size, being under 400 square feet, says that building code doesn't apply. It has to follow the fire code. And the fire code says that since it's so small, there is no requirement for snow load or anything like that. It's just too small. And any temporary membrane structure like this that's used for somebody's greenhouse, or if they do a craft show or anything like that, just for a temporary basis, the city of St. Paul, the building inspector, is claiming that they need to meet snow load and wind load requirements, which is just incomprehensible. But that's what they're saying. And that's what my problem with this is. I've got a zoning plan that says that this would be up no more than 6 months at a time, that it would be taken down by November 1st. This was done well before the hearing was made. So that's why I want this just totally vacated. I was told that if I put it up next year, she would order immediately that it be removed. You're welcome to look at the transcript. So that's what I have to say.
Within the 6 months?
No, immediately.
Okay. Well, it sounded, initially what we heard was that it's considered temporary and it can be up for no more than 180 days.
Correct, that is correct. But that's not what was claimed at the hearing.
Okay. Anything further?
That's it.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Rowe? Okay, thanks. I would move to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails. And I got a chance to talk to Kenny ahead of this public hearing. I did say that we would work with him looking forward at the structure. Today, what's in front of us is an order to remove what's considered a temporary structure by November 19th. In November. Which it sounded was agreeable to everybody at this point, but the real question is, what about next year when it comes time to put it up again? So we will take this item as it comes to us, and I would move the recommendation of the legislative hearing officer with a commitment to work with the constituent with the future carport. That looks kind of cute, actually, but we need it to conform. So any discussion on that? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
6 in favor, no one opposed. The resolution is adopted.